Lacey Everett here with the Minds in Motion Dance Series. Today's guest is Alyssa Allen. You know her on Instagram as Poppy Louise, such a down-to-earth person, so intelligent, and a phenomenal dancer. And in order to help others, please subscribe to the Minds in Motion YouTube channel. And if this video impacts you, it's most likely going to impact others, so feel free to send it their way. Alyssa is currently dancing for world-famous Hubbard Street Dance Chicago. Alyssa got her degree at USC in the Glorya Kaufman School of Dance, in their dance program there. And she's done a lot of commercial work, and she's just an overall really well-rounded dancer. Alyssa is going to give us tips for how to conquer a bad day and how to get through that, because we are human and being human is hard and we have bad days sometimes. And she really goes through tips on how to get through that. And she talks about her own life struggles with body dysmorphia and the ups and downs of dance and how she got through that, which instills hope and life lessons in us. Alyssa also talks about perfectionism, pros and cons of perfectionism, and how you can use it to your best abilities and how it can also be detrimental. Without further ado, Alyssa Allen. Hi, Alyssa.
Hi, Lacey.
Hi. So I'm so grateful to have you on here because you've done it all. You've done commercial dance. You're currently dancing for a really well-known dance company, and you majored in dance. You've really done it all, Alyssa. So I'm really grateful to have your words of wisdom.
Happy to be here. Thank you, Lacey.
Of course. And I thought we could start with the topic of perfectionism, because I know you have a lot of stories, life lessons you've learned from it, personal struggles, and things that will instill hope and instill life lessons in other people. So I'm curious what you have for us.
Yeah, with talking with you, I realized that the dancer I am and also the person I am has everything to do with trying to achieve perfectionism and at the same time deconstructing it. And, I think being brought in like in a technique form in ballet, I was always trying to strive for perfectionism, Sylvie Guillaume to be exact. And it really helped me find the technique, the form, the rigidity, and also just discipline. And that also, it came with a lot of struggles, and it's hard just becoming this ideal of perfection or this ideal of technique, It's something that is so inspiring and also something so destructive. And
absolutely,
I found a lot of the time, like being a young adolescent, just coming to faults with it, like running into walls. But then growing older and specifically going to college, I learned the beauty about releasing that ideal and like, how can I be everything but that perfectionist? And like, that's where I think my artistry really flowered and blossomed. That's where I became my truer self instead of being this form in a box, which is also super beautiful. I knew in my heart that I needed to release what that was, release any of that like constricting feel of this ideal of perfection.
Sounds like first that college really helped you grow, which that's what it's supposed to do. We go to college to learn things and to expand our knowledge. It also, what it did was teach you like all these other ways you could be. It sounds like too, you were used to being kind of perfect technique. Would you say perfect technique, perfect this, like in a box, kind of a machine, like you mentioned, and then you expanded out and thought, okay, I can use this in other ways, and not just to be detrimental and always focusing on Am I doing the most turns? Am I doing the most kicks and whatnot? It seems like you found that balance of it is really great, and you've become untouchable in the dance world because of it. You're a phenomenal person, being, and you are a phenomenal dancer, alien. It's interesting that the perfectionism has kind of led you to both ways, where you kind of notice, okay, this has become detrimental, like you kind of mentioned, like perfectionism can hurt me if I'm too focused on it, if I am constantly, hurting myself over it. And then it can also help me in ways where I can excel.
Yeah, and it's still a journey. I mean, I feel every day that I'm still trying to find the right balance, because even when I'm taking ballet in the morning, like I still go into that habit of, like 180-degree turnout, and, like how can I hold myself in the most like perfect disciplined way, and or even in the person that I am. It's a complete daily journey. So as much as I can talk about it looking back on my life, I'm still in the present, like still focused on it. And I think the beautiful part about college specifically is being in an institution where you're getting so many different outlets of education. I realized that, like, first of all, perfection is not achievable. And it's just a word, and I've put so much pressure into this word of perfection, and the being myself and allowing myself to try new things and be willing to get away from what I was. I think that's perfect, and yes. How can I change that word around 180 so that it works in a really healthy and loving way. And then even where we connected, training with Shannon Mather, she took us away from the form and brought in a lot of creativity, a lot of our input. And so it was little tidbits of like wisdom getting to college where it fully blossomed, but those little teachers along the way were integral to the artist that I am. Jesse Riley, Jermaine Spivey, and I don't know, it's so helpful.
I can vouch for that too, because of Shannon, of Mathers, and it's kind of like going beyond just the dance moves and going beyond the aspect of impressing and doing the kicks and the turns past your ear and whatever it may be, going beyond that and dancing from within to the outside. And I think when people watch that, they feel more. You were open, Alyssa, and a lot of people aren't, and a lot of people wouldn't have accepted a lot of those things, but you were open and you allowed these new teachings to come your way to form your own.
Yeah. And I think it requires a level of confidence and almost like self-reliance to be fearless, to try something else. And
so I'm curious, what is it like training in a dance company in Chicago, Hubbard Street, one of the biggest dance companies on earth? It's a huge privilege to be in, and they're so lucky to have you. So what is it like? What is it?
I mean, it's, first of all, my dream. It's been my dream since I was a kid to join a company, and for it to be Hubbard is like an even greater achievement. I'm just so happy to be here, and it's so interesting because when we were in the studio before COVID and everything, I realized the most I learn is in the transitions of like life, getting to point A happened because of everything that came before it, and so we're in rehearsals. I'm learning from older dancers how to engage in a space, how to like be respectful of the person at the front of the room, all these amazing things. But I'm picking up mostly on the in-betweens, like how do people cool down? How do they take care of their body? How are they communicating with their cohort to make it like a really amiable environment? And so I think that's the coolest thing I can take away is the transitions in life. That's where I learn the most,
Yes. And it sounds like, yes, like you relate it to life too, because everything we learn in our sport, whatever it may be, we can totally relate to life. So I get how you take those aspects that you learn and you relate it to life. So then maybe in life, you notice the transitions more. And that's also really important too, because there's all a bunch of quotes out there, famous sayings, phrases that are all about how you should enjoy the hike before you get to the top, or enjoy the ride, before you get to the end result. And that seems like what you're really doing. And it's showing, evidence is showing right here and right now that it's really made you thrive. Even your affect talking to me is so calm and joyous.
Yeah, I think it's so important to connect my artistry to my everyday, or even in a more general sense, like our hobby. Like how can we take all of that passion, that love, and that whole experience, even like the more like negative experiences, like the grief, how can I bring that into my life and not make it a separate entity? So I am the artist I am in the space in my living room, and
yes,
I think it all fuels one another.
It reminds me of when you talked about at the beginning about perfectionism and how you have so much control in your life and with yourself and with your dancing, because we all know that you can hold on one leg and your leg is like up here while the other's down there for like a billion hours. And so you have control in all aspects of life. And you talked about how you have that control because you're able to have the control, but you're also able to release it so much. And it reminds me of DBT and psychology, and it's a lot about acceptance and release. And it sounds like through your life and the transitions, and like you mentioned, the negative things that happen, you just seem like you just accept them and they're still a part of you. Okay. But like you're not wishing them away. But you kind of just accept how that's building you and building the person you are, and you're able to release it.
Yeah. I was reading Eckhart Tolle yesterday, A New Earth, and there was a whole passage, and it was like, you are experiencing right now because like you need to, like no matter the scenario, even if it's something that's really difficult or something really easy and happy, like you need to experience that, so it's better that we just accept the movement, the scenario, our life for what it is. That way we can move forward, and that's always helped my movement, my artistry.
And it shows. That's so pure. I love that. And too, I always say, I got it from George Mumford, who's a mindfulness teacher, a meditation teacher for athletes. And there's a book that he has, and he says something along the lines of, the future hasn't happened yet, so why worry about it? It's not even here yet. The past is gone, it's done. So you might as well live in the moment. I mean, we might as well. I know it's harder said than done, but it sounds like that's kind of what has helped you, is noticing the transitions, noticing every little bits of your life.
And it helps to let go of the perfectionist ideal.
Mm-hmm.
Just focus on yourself in the right now. You will become your perfect form, as opposed to thinking about this ideal later on.
Yes. And I love that word, how you rephrase the meaning of the word. You're perfect already, and your perfect is what perfect is.
Mm-hmm.
It's not what media says, or it's not what the sign over there says, or it's what you say.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. How did you get to that point, Alyssa? Because it's so, I know it's an evolution of your life and little things that you've learned along the way, But is there any tips you would have for others who struggle with that?
I mean, I really, really struggled for so many years, and I think it's allowing yourself to feel the pressure, the stress, the grief. And I don't know, I couldn't even, because in the moment when I was feeling all of this stress, I was just like, I felt like I was drowning. But then it's looking back at it, it's kind of like you need to feel what you're feeling and allow that to be felt and to accept it. And then later on, you'll hopefully feel something a little bit lighter and like less stressful because you've allowed yourself to go through the whole healing process of that grief or stress or whatever it may be.
Yes. I'm like, are you a therapist? I mean, this is what we learn in our school. We try to teach our patients to accept and release, kind of like what we were talking about, what you already know. And a lot of it is letting yourself feel, like you mentioned, and let yourself feel. And over time, if you accept the feelings, over time, it'll teach your brain, your body, mind, and soul will teach you that, okay, I can tolerate it. Emotion regulation, I can tolerate it. And over time, the feelings will subside a little bit. And it seems like that's what happened to you.
Right. And I mean, I think my parents are a huge, huge reason why A, I was feeling the stress, and then B, why I was able to overcome it and like feel like really loved. And so my parents are kind of my therapists. I went back home when COVID started and our season just ended. We didn't get to finish tour. We were in Italy. We flew back and it was devastating. And coming back home, I like left Chicago and I just had a really bad breakdown. Like it was a full panic attack and it was mainly over like my body image, like really bad dysmorphia. And my mom, she just hugged me and she was like, it's okay. Like feel it. Just allow yourself to feel this hurt. She was like, yeah, I'm here for you. But it's okay that you're feeling this. And like that approval or just like that acceptance of what I was feeling, I don't know, that'll be so helpful in the future, how to deal with all of that.
Yes. And when you go, Mom, cheers to the parents of Alyssa. I love that. I think that's a great lesson to other parents out there to validate their children and then talk about it later, and it seems like that's what she did. Validated your feelings and allowed you to feel sad and feel upset and feel uncomfortable with the way you looked and allowing that feeling. And then after that, it seems like it really helped you to tolerate your feelings. And that helps you get over those body dysmorphias and anxiety and such.
Totally. It's interesting how every dancer I know has such an individual difficult path, in our own ways. So I also find comfort in not being alone, in having had all of that grief and having a community that struggled. We all struggled so hard in our own ways and how we persevere as a community. And I think also finding relief in having a cohort.
Yes. So 2 things. So surround yourself with people who love you, like your parents, hopefully. And if you don't have that, validate yourself. Look at yourself in the mirror and say, hey, you're great. Allow yourself to feel those feelings. It'll be uncomfortable. Okay, it's part of the process. That means that you're healing when you're allowing yourself to feel those. And then the other thing, unity. Realize that you're not alone. I mean, I had an eating disorder, Alyssa. I went through it. I, sought out all the therapists, get rid of this, and so get help. And And it seems like that's kind of what you did. And knowing that you're not alone, and especially with dancers, we grow up looking at ourselves in the mirror all day long. So it's hard, even if we don't try to become, perfect or perfectionistic. And it kind of is instilled in us through an evolution, because especially with dancers, a lot of us have, even on Minds in Motion, they've talked about struggles, everyone, even just a person who's not even an athlete of any sort. We are human. We all have struggles, but just normalizing it to know that it's everyone's dealing with it. So that's nice that those two things seem to really have helped you.
Yeah, absolutely. And to put a pin on it, but acceptance also can be sometimes the longest process, that it's not, oh, I feel terrible. Oh, I'm good. I'm allowing myself to feel it. But it took years for me. It took years to actually realize what it means to accept my grief. And then how do I take a compliment when I couldn't ever hear it, but now I finally can, like, listen to people say something positive about me. And so, yeah, sometimes it's a really long process, but it's possible.
It's possible, yeah. And I'm sure you would rather have the long process than the rest of your life till you're 100 being that way.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
So choose your battles, pros and cons. And this one is a way better pro. You sought help and you grew, soared, slayed that dragon, and and you came out of it so well and so healthy and so knowledgeable about the world and dance. So I wanted to ask you too, how do you deal with a bad day? How do you deal with taking compliments, like you mentioned, that you don't want to hear, or or even just not even that, even just your day in Chicago and your day-to-day routines, because being a human is hard. It's so hard. And I validate that for everyone. And so how do you do it when you have a long day dancing, rehearsals, the performance doesn't go well, you're sore, how do you mentally fatigued?
Yeah.
What are your tips?
Especially like with dance, I feel like we're asked so much in rehearsal, and it's so emotionally, physically, mentally draining. And I'm a very emotional person, not outward at all, but like I just always have so many conflicting thoughts. I overanalyze, and I think the best thing I've learned when I come home and I'm exhausted, but I'm also really flustered and I'm anxious, is journal. Talk to someone that you trust and like bounce off ideas, but don't act upon any of the emotional exhaustion or the stress. I think giving yourself time to feel it, all of those things out, and journaling it and talking it over with yourself and with people that you trust, like then you'll be able to make a good action plan, and something that feels good to you and feels good to your surrounding environment. So I think giving myself time and like allowing myself to feel whatever I'm feeling, and knowing that it's not permanent. Nothing is permanent. That's so cool. That is so cool. So when I'm crying my eyes out, grieving, that's not forever. I will not feel this way forever. I will have a healing process and feel something different eventually.
I love that. I'm going to use that next time I'm feeling sad or bawling my eyes out. Or the people listening, you have a tip for life now. It's not permanent. I'm almost going to start laughing if I'm crying, because I'm like, oh, this isn't permanent. I'll feel better another day. Not permanent. And journaling, talking out your thoughts, getting it going, talking with other people always helps make decisions. The important part is to not act on it. Notice you're feeling a certain way and to not act on it yet, and let yourself feel and cool down first, because I'm sure center yourself. Nice. Okay. Well, this was great, Alyssa.
Thank you, Lacey. Seriously, like, it's so good to reconnect.
Well, I'll see you soon, hopefully. I'm wishing you the best of luck with the company. and dancing, healing vibes. If you're ever sore or injured, I get it. So I'm wishing you the best, truly, Alyssa. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Lacey, and you too.
Thank you. All right, bye.